We're making candy, and candy is a lot of fun. Don't be intimidated by the stories you've heard about making Divinity or candy. As long as you follow a few simple rules, it'll turn out. You always make sure everything's out and in place before you get started. That's very important because candy is a fast process and everything needs to be out and ready. Butter the sides of your pot, regardless of what kind of pot you're using. Once you start melting your butter, just pick it up with a fork like that and just do a really good coating around it. Now, the non-stick, of course, it's going to want to slide off of it anyway, but the great thing about it is if you don't have a non-stick, this is going to really help your sugar from forming crystals in your candy. Now we're going to take this butter and we're going to add our sugars and our milk. Today we're using Carnation evaporated milk.
Can they use anything else besides the evaporated milk?
Yes, if you don't have evaporated milk, you can use a heavy whipping cream or half and half. If you don't know what half and half is, just buy heavy whipping cream, okay? So if your question is, can I use whole milk? No, because this is a praline. It needs to be super creamy and you should be able to taste the cream in it, okay? Now, we are going to add to this butter 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1.5 cups of white sugar, and try to use fine, you know, the sugar that's fine, like Domino, that's what I like. And if you didn't know that evaporated milk is cream, now you know, because it is. It's equivalent to cream. If you don't believe me, you can Google it. So this is our evaporated milk going in.
Now, we've had some people say that you can take your sugar and mix it, and it'll make it fine. Is that true?
Not mix it, blend it in the blender.
I got you.
Yes, it will. You can actually, a lot of people say that they can make powdered sugar that way. I've never been successful at it, and I've got a pretty good blender. Even if you've got a store-brand sugar, as long as you cook this low and at a slow, medium boil, it's going to work, all right? Today, we're going to be using a candy thermometer, okay? But if you don't have a candy thermometer, which my mother never did, what I'm going to do is once this starts to a medium boil, and make sure you barely stir it, because the less sugar you slosh up on the edges of your bowl or your boiler, the better off you are. Use a wooden spoon. For some reason, that's just how pralines are made. And stir in this butter and cream into the sugar. Try to stay in the middle of the pot. Don't get around the edge and don't slosh it all around. And then we're going to bring this to a slow boil. If you do this right, just like Mama's fudge, you let it come to a boil at a slower rate, all right? You can also put a lid on it, which helps tremendously. And that's what I'll probably do. And once you take this out, because it's got those larger sugar crystals on it, don't put it back in there unless you wash it first. It doesn't hurt if it has a little water on it, but just make sure you wash all those sugar crystals off before you put it back into your candy. We're going to put a lid on this so that it comes to a heat evenly. And I've got it on a high. I'm going to turn it down on a medium. And then what we're going to do is once I see this boiling in the center, not just around the edges, then I'll take the lid off, stir it, and then I'll probably time it a good 3 solid minutes. And then we're going to check it with a candy thermometer, okay? Now, if you don't have a candy thermometer, don't think you can't make candy, because you can. Get you a jar. Run it full, at least halfway full of water. And it needs to be cold water, not ice cold, but cold. And we're going to drop a little candy in it. If the candy separates, it's not ready. If the candy floats to the bottom and forms a little ball, then it is ready. If the candy hits it and it turns into long lines, that means it's hard stage. What you want is to put it in there and it just form a little ball. and drop to the bottom, okay? All right, I'm just gonna use a different wooden spoon every time. And if you don't have enough to do that, we're gonna just stir it. When I make homemade fudge, it's this exact same recipe. It is. It doesn't have quite as much milk in it, but it is a stick of butter, 1.5 cups. It's actually 3 cups of sugar mixed with Hershey's cocoa and a stick of butter, and then I cook it like this. So it's almost the same identical recipe, except I use a little less evaporated milk. And with both, anytime you're making a homemade candy with regular sugar, instead of marshmallow cream, or a lot of people use corn syrup to help keep it from turning, you need to make sure and don't get in a hurry and let it cook for a while. And this is exactly how I do my fudge as well. And you can't beat it. You can't beat these homemade candies that are made with real sugar and not the marshmallow cream and the corn syrup added. The corn syrup doesn't hurt it, but it's a lot better than melting chocolate chips and calling it fudge, right? Hey y'all, I interrupt this video to say, why don't, for a Christmas present, you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell? That would be a blessing. Chris is eating the pralines already, so we better get back to cooking. Let's see. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. You want it to be a medium boil, and once you turn it up and it starts boiling towards the middle, that's considered a medium boil. Then you can start your timer. So we'll go ahead and start our timer. The only reason I'm timing this is so that if you don't have a thermometer at home, that you kind of know about how long it's going to take. We'll go ahead and check the temperature. Well, I don't want to put this in there, and I'll tell you why. The more you dip this down in your candy, the more sugar crystals it's going to get on the end of it too. So wait until your candy boils at least a good solid, like this, a solid 3 minutes before even putting your thermometer down in there, all right? Let me just say this, y'all. An electric stove is going to cook this a lot different because it has a solid heat surface. My gas stove only has a flame on the outside. So I have to cook at a higher temperature than you if you have electric. So remember that too. If you have an electric stove, turn it down to where it's just a steady boil. Okay, not a rolling boil, a steady boil. I've only got about 45 more seconds before it's 3 minutes. Then I want to see how hot it is. Now, this is a thermometer that has a metal piece on the bottom so that the actual thermometer head doesn't sit down on the actual pot surface, because then it would get too hot. You want it in the candy and not laying on the bottom of your pot, if that makes sense. All right, so you are going to cook your candy until it reaches the soft ball stage. And you can see there's a firm ball, there's a soft ball, and then there's a crack, soft crack, and then a hard crack. And it's according to what kind of candy you're making as to which one you're going to be using. But we are going for soft ball, and it doesn't have long to go. And you can see that now. So, now see, to me, it's already ready. You see how it looks like little circles in the bottom of there?
It's at that stage.
Not quite.
Oh, it's like a couple of degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
All right, y'all watch. See how when you drop it, it actually forms a ball and then it goes down to the bottom? It's ready.
Do it.
To me, this thing is saying it still lacks a little bit, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'd rather use the old-fashioned method and it not get too overdone, okay? So we're going to take it off the heat and let it sit 5 minutes. So once we let this cool for 5 minutes, we're going to make chocolate pralines out of one, half of it. All right, so with your chocolate, you're going to need 4 pieces of this for a half batch. And we're going to make half the batch with chocolate and half without. So you're just going to finely chop it. And I just use a really nice sharp knife and just run it down the edge of it like that. So this is 4 ounces of that chocolate. I showed you how I chopped it. So you just finely chop it. And then we're going to use a cup of pecans in each of them. And these are just, you can chop them small or let them be big, however you want to do it. Mine are pretty big. Make sure you, if you can, get you some fresh pecans that aren't real dark in color. Okay, now our candy has sat for 5 minutes, and I can't beat 2 candies at one time because one is chocolate and one's not. So Chris is helping me. It's already trying to set up a little bit. So I'm going to stir this, and then I'm going to put it in our bowls, and we're going to use half and half in each bowl. We're just going to beat it. And it says you're going to beat it until it doesn't look glossy anymore. So I am going to put a little vanilla in both of them.
Okay.
And we're just going to beat it. Now mine's got chocolate and his don't.
So there's nothing else to put in it, huh?
No. I bet mine sets up a lot quicker with the chocolate in there.
Yeah.
Mine's already setting up.
It's creamy. Think it's ready, Tammy?
Yes, hurry. So when you put these out on the parchment, all right, y'all can see that my pralines were really thick because of the chocolate. And chocolate did make a difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them in the microwave. And I'm going to zap them for 1 minute. Yeah, just a regular power microwave. And just start it on a minute and then check it, okay? So with candy, you got to be in a hurry. And you got to get it mixed up. And you got to get it poured out. And with a praline, you want it to look creamy and delicious. So if your recipe says beat it until it don't look glossy anymore, that's wrong. Because if you want your praline to look nice and creamy like Chris's does, if you beat it until the gloss is gone, it's going to look like my chocolate does. And that is not what you want it to look like when you pour it out, or it won't make as pretty of a praline. Let's mix this up. So you want to pour it up while it's still shiny, thick and shiny. See that? The difference it made in the candy? And it doesn't hurt one bit to do that. Doesn't mean you can't make candy. It just means you're smart. All right? Because you don't want to waste ingredients, especially when they cost as much as they're make, you know, as they do at this time of year. But now when we pour this out, it's going to make a beautiful praline that looks creamy. No. And you got to really hurry. Because if you don't hurry, the gloss is going to go away.
And it doesn't affect the taste.
Oh, no.
It's prettier.
Yeah, and if you want it to be a pretty praline on the table or the serving bar or in a gift box, then you want it to look nice and creamy. That's so good. Woo! This is so good. I think I like the regular praline better than the chocolate.
Really?
Yeah, because you can really taste the butter. Now, a thermometer will break, so you don't want to take a cold thermometer out of the drawer and stick it down in boiling candy. I always put it in before I even start boiling it. So remember that as well. We're going to go ahead and put in our ingredients, and then we're going to hop over here and beat up an egg white, because the egg white has to be ready by the time the candy gets ready. This candy is 1.5 cups. Mine says packed brown sugar, but today we're going to use white sugar. So we're going to do 1.5 cups of white sugar. And we're going to add a 1/2 cup of water. And a teaspoon of white vinegar. We're going to bring this to a slow simmer. So we're going to go ahead and turn on our stovetop and bring it to a slow simmer. That means you need to heat it on a medium heat to start with. Don't rush it, okay? I'm not going to stir it. If you do stir candy, I have learned from Fannie Farmer that it's best to use a wooden spoon because it don't get hot when you're holding it, and for it to have a flat bottom to help get the air bubbles and sugar off of the bottom of your saucepan. But I'm going to let this come to get some heat in there first before I add this. I'm not going to put my thermometer in there just yet. And you can warm up your thermometer in some hot water and then put it in there if you want to. And we may do that in a minute. All right, so I'm going to take my pastry brush and I'm going to dip it into some water. And I'm just going to wet the sides of the saucepan a little bit around the edges. And this extra water will just evaporate out. So if you're afraid you're going to hurt your candy, you're not. And then once you finish doing this, you can put a lid on it. Right now I've got it on a simmer temperature. And that way it comes to a very slow boil, and that's what you want it to do. All right, you can tell this is coming to a slow boil, and the sugar is starting to be melted off the bottom of the pot. I am not going to put this down in there because all I'll do is get sugar crystals on it. It's really best not to use something and stir it, especially if you don't have cream in your candy. There's no reason why it needs to be stirred. So we're going to put a lid on this. Well, first I need to get my thermometer down in there. So I'm going to run it under some hot water and we're going to put it in there. Now that most of the sugar is, you don't really see that many sugar crystals left on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and put this down in there. And, Lord, there's barely enough candy in here to even touch the thermometer. But now this candy will rise as it boils. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put a lid on it and I'm going to let it boil for a couple of minutes while we beat up an egg white. And remember, if you get it too hot, you can add a little water, cool it down, and then bring it back to the right temperature. If you mess up, you know, it's fixable. All right, so you're going to take a room temperature egg and you're just going to use the egg white. You're going to put it in your mixer and you're going to beat it, add a dash of salt until stiff peaks form. And then once this candy gets to the right temperature, we're going to pour it over the top of these beat up egg whites. Now I had to add an extra egg white to get this to beat up because there wasn't enough egg in my bowl to even beat up an egg white. And that's okay. If you use 2 egg whites, it's not going to hurt a thing. It's about 220 degrees. Let me turn this off. It's about 220 degrees. So it's still got to get up to all the way to 245. Once it reaches the softball stage, I'm going to show you how it looks in some water, just for fun. We don't have a lot of liquid in here, so I'm going to tilt it just a tiny bit, make sure I get a good reading. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the heat. I got it on medium. I'm going to turn it up to high. I think I'm going to have to turn it all the way up to get it hot enough. And it's much better to go slow with it than to speed it up too quick, because then sometimes the sugar don't get melted good. So just for fun, I am going to drop some down in some water. Now you can use the water method test. That's what my mama did most of the time. She didn't have a thermometer that worked. These thermometers are tricky, and you use about a half teaspoon, and you just drop it down in cold water. You can see it's trying to get a little bit stringy on the spoon, but you can see down in the bottom how that looks. Really and truly, to me, it's about ready. Let's check on it. Oh yeah, now we've let it get too hot. But now today, it's humid outside, and according to Fannie Farmer, when it's humid outside, you should let it get a little bit hotter. Okay. Or it can make your candy get sticky. She also tells you not to scrape your pot. You're going to beat it till it doesn't look as glossy anymore. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla flavoring to it, and then I'm actually going to make pecan log rolls out of this. So instead of putting pecans in the candy, I'm actually going to roll the Divinity in the pecans, and I toasted them a little bit and make log rolls out of it. Okay, you can tell that it is not as glossy looking anymore. So I'm going to beat this just for another minute or so, and then we're going to take it out to make our rolls. All right, now if you're just making Divinity, you can add some chopped pecans or whatever nut you like in your Divinity, whether it's black walnut or walnut. And you can drop it by the spoonfuls out on your parchment paper. But because I'm making log rolls, we're going to try to, while it's still sticky, let it stick in these pecans. And I'll make a couple of little pieces of Divinity too, for the picture, for y'all. So you would just take it out and drop it onto your wax paper like this. And it's just that simple. So what I want to try to do is make little log rolls. And what I'll probably have to do is put this out like this. Matter of fact, I'm going to turn it the other direction. We're going to make one big long roll. And we have to do it pretty quick because it needs to be able to stick into the pecans. And this candy, of course, needs to be airtight. And this is a candy, too, that you could put different flavors in it. You know, if you like maple, if you like peppermint, if you like whatever you like. You can use the different flavorings, orange, whatever you think you would like, you and your family. I'll go rinse my hands off. Oh, it's so good. Tastes just like Mom's Divinity. Make sure you toast your pecans. And you got to get these pecans on there while the Divinity's still sticky. See, it's already wanting to fall off. We'll just make little drops of Divinity out of this that's left. Boy, it's perfect. The consistency of it is absolutely perfect. Parchment is like the best thing ever for candy. Okay, now I'm going to taste it. Y'all ready? Now that's a fresh and delicious log roll. Absolutely delicious. Today we're making one of my daddy's favorites, chocolate covered cherries with milk chocolate. The first thing you do when you make chocolate covered cherries is you drain your cherries. Let them drain for at least a couple of hours, okay? So you want to get cherries with the stems on. In order to find these, I had to go where the ice cream is. You know, the ice cream toppings and the cones and stuff like that. If you just go on the fruit aisle of your grocery, lots of times the cherries will not have stems. So remember that if you can't find them with stems, to look wherever the ice cream condiments are in the store. And of course, some of these won't have a stem, probably. So you get to eat those. We got quite a few misfits in there. See, this one's just saying, eat me, eat me. That's what I did. I love cherries. So you're going to let these sit out on a paper towel for 2 hours. And it takes a little time to make chocolate covered cherries because they're delicate, but boy, are they delicious. This is one of my daddy's favorite things every Christmas. Is chocolate covered cherries. All right, after your cherries have sat out a couple of hours, you're going to mix up a powdered sugar mixture. You're going to use about 3 tablespoons of butter, about 3 tablespoons of corn syrup, and 2 cups of powdered sugar. So it's 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of corn syrup, and 2 cups of powdered sugar. And we're going to blend that well, and then we're going to form it around these cherries. has obviously stuck to the sides of my mixer. So I'm going to scrape it. I say we add a little extra. Another tablespoon of butter and another tablespoon of syrup. Should do it. Yep, that's going to do it. So it'd be 4 and 4. And I'm going to add a dash of salt to mine. Everything's sweet better with a little bit of salt in it. So you can see how that looks. So you're going to take about, let's see how much it says. I think it said a half a teaspoon. Take a piece of parchment. And I'm going to pick these up. And put this here. And then what you're going to do, you're going to take a half a teaspoon of your powdered sugar mixture. And you're going to wrap it around each cherry. So you can powder your fingers if you want to. And then you're going to chill these for a couple of hours before you dip them in your chocolate. So try to get it on there about even. There you have it. So each cherry you're going to do that way. As evenly as you can, and just do them all that way. Once you get all your cherries coated with your powdered sugar mixture, then we're just going to set them in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and we'll come back and melt some chocolate and get these suckers ready. These are going to be delish, delish. All right, we got 2 left. Chris helped me. This takes a few minutes, and you got to be a little bit patient and really try to do a good job pushing it around the cherry and getting it around there and making it really pretty and round. Because when you dip your cherry in the chocolate, you want it to be beautiful. See how pretty they look when you get them done? They're so pretty you don't even want to dip them. They're beautiful. So it's the perfect amount. That half a teaspoon is the perfect amount to go around these cherries. But my daddy absolutely loves cherries, chocolate covered cherries. He's diabetic now, but he will definitely get a couple of these this Christmas. So I will dip these and store them in the refrigerator until we head down there for Christmas, and I'll put them in an airtight jar. Now, all candy you should put in something airtight. Either you don't want too much moisture getting into it, or you don't want the moisture to get out of it. So you're always better off just by putting your candy in a good airtight jar. And right now we've got to get these in the refrigerator, and we're going to chill them for about 3 hours before we dip them into our chocolate, so they'll be nice and cold, and that chocolate will seal really quick, and you got to make sure you get a good seal on it too. Now you can make these with semi-sweet chocolate, or you can make them with milk chocolate. We prefer milk chocolate. Even if we buy them at the store, we like the milk chocolate covered cherries. I have got Hershey's milk chocolate chips, and we're just going to place these in the microwave and put it on about 1-minute intervals. Mix it, and then we're going to dip our cherries. And you're better off putting it in something small and tall so that the cherry can dip down in there instead of having it in a shallow bowl. It'll just do better. Okay. I'm desperate. I'm going to add a little shortening to this because it is just too thick for me to make a pretty cherry with. So if you add just a little bit of shortening, it will thin up the chocolate enough that you can dip your cherry. This is what I do when I do chocolate covered strawberries. Now some of y'all, your grandparents or mothers may have used paraffin wax, but Paraffin wax is really not supposed to be, it's not an edible thing. I actually took these cherries and sealed the top before I dipped them. But once we get the chocolate thinner, you're going to see that it's just going to coat so much easier. And let it drip off. And just keep heating up your chocolate over and over until you get them all coated. Delicious. Roll it around in there, y'all. And you're going to have to heat up your chocolate a good bit, y'all, because these cherries do cool it down quite quickly. A delicious cherry. Now the next day, these will be more liquidy on the inside. But oh my gosh, everybody's already eaten them. They're so good. It's delicious. It's just delicious. It was always at Granny's. It's super simple to make. All you need is 4 ingredients. Yep. Some baked potatoes, vanilla, creamy peanut butter, and powdered sugar. That's all there is to it. The main thing you need to make sure and do is have your potatoes cooled enough that they're not going to melt your powdered sugar. Make sure they're good and done. You don't want lumpy potato candy either. So we're going to get started on this. It's going to be so simple. And we're going to start off by taking our potato, peeling it, and getting it in this mixer. So you'll see we've got the potatoes, good old Watkins vanilla, creamy Jif peanut butter, and some powdered sugar. Today is the SEC championship game. Alabama plays Georgia. We'll just have to see what happens, won't we? And if you got a bad place on the end of your potato like that one did, pinch it off. All right, I'm going to put this one in there. We're going to go ahead and finish peeling this one. Yeah, sometimes the ends have got kind of a brown hard spot, and you're going to want to pinch those off. When you peel back this peeling, if there's more brown spots, just take them out of there because you want a pretty white candy. All right, that's all there is to that. Now that's our potato. Now all we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of vanilla in here. And then we're just going to be adding powdered sugar. That's all there is to it. Turn it down on 1. And we'll just add these 1 cup at a time. Take the whole 2-pound bag of sugar. I used a pretty big potato, and it's supposed to take 1 pound of powdered sugar per medium potato. And I used a large potato, and then I also used another medium. So we're just going to be making a lot of candy. That's probably going to do it. A good dash of salt. All right. We're going to get this out of here. All right, I've got my sifter right here, and I emptied the flour out of it. We're going to put a little powdered sugar in it because we're going to lay this out on the counter, and I'm just going to dust it with some powdered sugar. And I'm just going to get it out about a handful at a time. And this is how much we'll make to start with. Yummy, yum. Let's get our little rolling pin. And roll it out. And then you're going to spread your peanut butter on it. And then you're going to roll it up. Let's get our peanut butter. We're going to spread it on here. Yum, yum. That's all there is to it, y'all. Pretty easy candy, right? So now we're going to roll it. Up. It's wanting to stick. Let me get out my scraper. Now I'm just going to pull it out like a bar, like that. We're going to put a little bit more powdered sugar on here, and we're going to slice it, and I'm going to show you how pretty it looks on a tray. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? And easy too, y'all. You just need to let it cool down a minute before you slice it, and get you a nice knife. And then you're just going to take your knife. You don't really have to refrigerate it. Just let it sit on the counter for a few minutes, and then take your knife and cut your slices. And this is a really rich candy, so you don't need them to be really big pinwheels. That's plenty enough for somebody to get something good to eat. And you can put this in the refrigerator and keep it for a long time. There's really nothing in it that's going to go bad for a while. Old-fashioned peanut butter candy. Boy, it's pretty. If you wash your knife, every time you cut it, it's going to be nice and pretty and spiral looking. Boy, is it cute. Cute, cute, and delicious. Just like Granny. Just like Granny made. Okay, to make these Martha Washington balls, you're going to need butter, coconut, powdered sugar, which we have, some delicious Eagle brand condensed milk, and chocolate chips, coconut, and chopped pecans. Okay, I may have said coconut twice, I'm not sure. But anyway, you're going to start out with your butter. Okay, you're going to add your pecans. I'm doing a half recipe because I'm going to do two things with my Eagle brand milk today since it's Valentine's Day. All right, we're going to put in a half cup of chopped pecans into our melted 1/2 stick of butter. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our powdered sugar in our coconut okay, you're going to use a half bag of your coconut. There's 14 ounces in here, so I'm just going to eyeball it and put it in there. I just kind of pinched it in half and then poured it in. All right. And now we're going to use half of a can of our sweetened condensed milk because, like I said, we're going to make something else with the rest of our coconut. So we're gonna put in about half the can. All right, we're just gonna have to eyeball it. We can do that. Yummy. Let's see how that looks. A little bit more. Let's see. All right. We're gonna go ahead and mix this up. Yummy, don't that look delicious? Ooh. Ooh, I remember my mother making Martha Washington balls every Christmas. I just love them. I don't know if y'all liked them as much as I did. But what you're gonna do now is put in your powdered sugar, and after we get it all mixed in here, then you roll them into balls. Now, you're supposed to use a pound of powdered sugar. Now, this powdered sugar, I guess it's okay. I'm gonna put in half of it and mix it and then put in the other half. I'm probably gonna have to get me a harder spoon to do a really good job because this is gonna be really thick. So you're gonna have to use a metal spoon. Now, I guess you could use your mixer, but now this is really thick. It would bog down a mixer pretty good. So I would be careful putting this in a mixer. And it takes a little bit of elbow grease, okay? Martha Washington balls are wonderful. That Eagle Brand milk and pecans. Woo, it's delicious. Gonna be good, y'all. All right, so it's already really thick. I'm gonna put in some more powdered sugar. And just keep on mixing. So you're just gonna continue to put this powdered sugar in. It's a whole pound. Now, if you're doing the full recipe, you'd be putting in 2 pounds. But you just double everything that I've done. It's a lot of powdered sugar. It's a pound of powdered sugar. I'm gonna reach in here and use my hands. Just make sure you got some clean hands, because I'm gonna tell you, it would take me forever to get this mixed up with a spoon. It is Valentine's Day 2022, and I am making these for my Valentine. I'm gonna see if I can't get this out on the counter to mix it easier, okay? Y'all, it's hard to mix. I can tell you that right now. Hard to mix. Tammy's just gonna use her elbow grease. Now I've been sick, and that's why I sound hoarse. But I was determined to make my sweetheart something delicious for Valentine's Day. So here we are. See, it's so much easier to get it out on the counter and really work it to get that powdered sugar in there good. And it really is too thick, I think, for a mixer. But now you could put it in a mixer if you want to. I got my mixer out and was going to use it, but wound up not using it. Now then, it's starting to come together good, ain't it, y'all? Good candy. Homemade candy for Valentine's Day. Why not? Good old-fashioned Martha Washington balls. Okay, that's all there is to it. Now that we've got it all mixed up, we're going to roll it into balls and dip them. Look at there. That big Martha Washington ball before it's dipped. Now you're just going to take it and roll it into balls. And you want them to be little. About that size. So they're about 1 inch in diameter. okay? That's about a tablespoon. We'll use it. And that way they'll all be identical. So you're just gonna roll them up. I'm just using this as a measuring. So you could use a tablespoon as well. And we're gonna roll them all up, put them in the freezer, get them nice and chilled while we melt some chocolate to dip them in. They're gonna be delicious, y'all. Just delicious. How many of you remember your mother or grandmother or daddy, whoever it was, aunt, making these and always having them on the table for a snack at Christmas? Tell me if you remember Martha Washington balls. And how long has it been since you made a Martha Washington ball? All right, we've got almost 5 dozen. Not far from having completely 5 dozen. I think I got 4 dozen plus 8, okay? So take a look. All the balls are about the same size. They look really pretty and they rolled up real easy. So if you use something to measure them, and you don't have to have a cookie scoop, you could just use a regular measuring scoop and do a tablespoon if you want to, but just try to make them all the same size. Okay, I have decided that I am going to freeze these, and if you freeze them, you've got to go ahead and put your toothpicks in them before you freeze them. Otherwise, they'll be too hard to get a toothpick in, and you'll make a mess when you're trying to get them dipped. So go ahead and put your toothpicks in them before you put them in the freezer if you're going to freeze them like I'm going to do. It's Tammy, and we're going to finish up these Martha Washington balls. Today is it Wednesday, Chris, or Thursday?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. Y'all, I'm mixed up because I've been out of the weather, or whatever you call it, for a while. And I just got flowers delivered right on time before I started taping. And they're from Bob. And I want to say thank you to Bob. You are absolutely sweet, and they're beautiful. And you know I love lilies. And Rhonda had sent me flowers when I first got COVID, and I just want to thank her for her flowers as well while I'm at it. We're going to get these Martha Washington balls done now. And so the first thing, I want to dip mine in milk chocolate, and I had a bright idea. I've got some English toffee, and so I'm going to roll a few of them in this toffee once I dip them, and I think that will be really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take milk chocolate. Now you can use semi-sweet chocolate or dark chocolate, whatever you want to use on yours, but I prefer milk chocolate, and I think Chris does too. It says on the bag to melt these, just to melt them on half power, and to mix it. So we're going to take about a cup of these chocolate chips. Let me put in a little bit more. And we're going to put the microwave on half power. I'm using a small measuring cup because I do want to dip them right into the measuring cup, and I want it to be deep, the chocolate to be deep, so it's easy to mix. So we're going to place this in the microwave, and we're going to put our microwave power level down half to 5 instead of 10. And I am going to put this on a minute. And don't overcook your chocolate. If you do, it'll burn, okay? So be real careful. Use the half mark, and it'll take a few minutes, but we're gonna get this melted. And I just thought that the Martha Washington balls, some of them would be really good with these to give it a little bit of a crunch on the outside. Don't you think that's a good idea? These things are delicious. I wanna make a cake with these. I have a recipe. I think it's gonna be really good. Okay, they've been in there a minute, and I'm just going to see if I can get down into the bottom. They're starting to melt some. So we're gonna turn them back on. Me and Chris are doing great, and I appreciate all of you who've had to wait on me to respond to your emails and cookbook things, and I'm very sorry, but you know, it's just taking some time to get over and get our strength back, or my strength back. Chris always had his strength. He's a man, you know, he's a strong man. Aren't you, Chris?
Yep.
He's a strong man, and he went out and bought a bunch of plants this morning. He's going to start our garden soon. Now it's starting to really melt. And once it really starts to melt, it doesn't hurt to just continue to stir it because it's already warm. So really use your little spatula and stir it a lot. Get those extra chips melted in there. But you want it really hot or it's not going to be thin enough on your candy, okay? Let's see if I think that's thin enough. And you may have to continue to heat it up. Now some people, if you make a lot of something, you could put your chocolate in one of those little crock pots. And it keeps them warm. Now we're just gonna dip these. And you really need to dip it and get all of it in there. See, to me, this is just too thick. I'm gonna thin it up a little bit with something. Toffee bits. Lay it right here to dry. Okay, so since I've got about a cup of chocolate, I'm going to put at least a teaspoon of shortening in it. Now, back in the day, people would use paraffin wax to do this with, but now my mama always used shortening. And we're going to put this back in the microwave and get it hot, mix that up, and hopefully it'll be thin enough that it's easier to dip them. All right, you can see that shortening and how it's melting, and it's going to really thin this up and make it a lot better to dip our Martha Washington balls in. So now we've got a thinner chocolate, which should work a lot better. So you're just going to dip your ball in there, and you are going to shake it off. That's the good thing about these being frozen. It's not going to hurt to beat them a little bit. I'm going to put these in the toffee. Now, of course, I'm going to make a few without the toffee as well. But don't that look good? It looks like a cake pop. And just get the excess off. That's all there is to it. Boy, isn't that an easy, delicious candy to make for Christmas or Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, any holiday. And who says you got to have a holiday? You know, me and Chris are going to have these after Valentine's Day. And you could also freeze these. Once they dry really well, you could freeze them. Woo, I'm glad I made a half recipe, y'all. If I had not made a half recipe, I would have been rolling and dipping till the cows come home, for real. It takes forever. So whatever you do, make a half recipe, because a half recipe still makes about close to 5 dozen. Here's our 2 in the refrigerator that have set up. The chocolate has sealed. Now this is your plain Martha Washington ball. And we looked up, what is a Martha Washington ball? And my hands are hot, so it's going to melt. And it said that they're thinking that it originated from an actual store that was a candy store called Martha Washington. And that said in the 1800s, didn't it, Chris?
1890s.
Delicious. Very sweet, of course. But now Chris is going to be a better taster because he has more taste buds than I do right now. But I can still taste it. The coconut and the condensed milk and the pecans and the chocolate. Yummy, yum. How do you like the toffee one?
That's good too. You can't make something too sweet for me.
I know, Chris loves super sweet stuff, don't you, baby?
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a treat, and Chris loves it. I can remember eating some of these sometimes, and they'd be softer in the middle, And right now they're pretty cold, so it's hard to tell. But I may actually reduce a little bit of the powdered sugar in these just to make them a little creamier on the inside. And but you got to make sure that you don't get them too creamy or they won't hold their shape good. Now, if you use a chocolate wafer instead of milk chocolate or real chocolate, it will also be a little thinner for you, I think, and make a prettier candy. So keep in mind when you're using real chocolate that it does thicken as you heat it up if you heat it over and over. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we thank you so much for watching Collard Valley Cooks, where we cook like Mama did. And thank you, Bob, for my flowers, and Rhonda. Y'all have a blessed day. Come back and see us.